Yeah. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Distinguished participants, I have been assigned the task of concluding the Margalla dialogue on the theme of emerging global realities, and also to touch upon the salient takeaways that can be drawn from the intense discussions which were spread over the last 2 days. Let me admit that it would be next to impossible to offer a summary of the varied and comprehensive discussions we have had in 6 different forums apart from the inaugural session. And even if I did make a stab at trying to summarize the discussions, I will not succeed. Furthermore, I think you are all tired and want to go home as quickly as possible. Instead, what I was planning to do was to inflict my own views on some of the issues that have been discussed during the last 2 days. But it's up to you. Should I inflict these views on you or should I spare you? Spare you or inflict? Inflict, okay. So let's begin by saying that the world is living through very uncertain times. It has been described variously as the age of chaos, as the age of conflict, as the age of anger by different analysts. It is confronted with various challenges and difficulties. There is war in Ukraine, genocide in Gaza, attempts at occupation of the West Bank, part of which is already under settler occupation, and attacks on Lebanon, Yemen, and Iran by Israel. Then there are raging civil conflicts in Sudan and in other parts of Africa. And it has been said that the world today is in greater danger of war than at any time since 1945. To add to the problems, the international relations today are marked by an increasing rivalry and competition between the United States and the West on the one hand, and China on the other. And this conflict or competition is going on in the strategic, political, economic, technological, and all other fields. Our own sub-region, South Asia, is riven with problems, both political and economic, as well as those relating to climate change. There is also the desire on the part of the largest country of South Asia, India, to assume the role of a regional hegemon. Right-wing populism is gaining grounds almost everywhere, in Europe, in the United States, in parts of Asia, and other countries. Anti-immigration sentiments are on the rise, particularly in the United States and Europe, against immigration from either from Latin America in the case of the United States, and from Syria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other countries and other troubled areas into Europe. International trade regimes are also under assault. WTO lies dormant And instead of liberalizing trade, the major players led by the United States are moving rapidly towards building high tariff walls and adopting protectionist policies and offering heavy subsidies to their manufacturers and producers. Bilateral, sub-regional, and at best, regional agreements, trade arrangements are taking shape. So the free market economies, which brought in the concept of globalization, are reneging upon that concept when the rest of the world is ready to globalize and take a share, the rightful share of the world economy. We may well be entering an era of trade wars, which bodes ill for the vulnerable economies like Pakistan and other developing countries. Economic relations are also being weaponized by Western countries through the denial of technology, imposition of sanctions, embargoes, tariffs, and assistance to developing countries is riddled with conditionalities and other means of economic coercion. Multilateralism is in retreat. The United Nations Security Council is becoming ineffective in the face of growing differences and disputes between veto-wielding powers. In the last session, a question was asked about the issue of veto. Pakistan's position is that veto is a power assumed by the victor states of the Second World War, unilaterally, without consultation with the countries which had not yet emerged as independent states. And it is an anti-democratic practice. And the best thing would be to abolish the veto of the existing permanent members of the United Nations instead of creating new pockets of power by giving veto to some other countries which are desirous of acquiring permanent membership and veto power. These include, of course, India, Japan, Germany, Brazil, and others. The continent of Africa does not have any permanent member, and therefore we believe that perhaps even the permanent category needs a revision. But these issues have been discussed at the United Nations for almost 3 decades now without a resolution. On climate change, unfortunately, the US policies are due for a change. The President-elect of the United States, Mr. Trump, calls climate change a hoax and has vowed to end the green economy in the United States and also intends to enhance drilling for oil and gas in the US. While the world has witnessed the hottest year on record and the 1.5 degree increase in temperature since the Industrial Revolution that was considered to be the limit has already been reached, and the projections are that by the end of this century, the rise in temperature may well be 3.1 degrees, which would certainly mean disaster for many areas of the world, and particularly for countries like Pakistan, because the glacier melts have already started. There will be floods initially, there will be weather events, and then the glaciers will have spent all their waters, and these areas will become arid. And the way that we are adding to our population, which is expected to grow to almost 400 million by the year 2050, there will not be enough water to provide for all the people living in this area. And let's be quite clear that unless we adopted corrective policies to control the population and to make the best use of water available to us, this area will be in for great trouble, and migration will start from here with no place to go, because the people of this area will not be able to migrate anywhere else, which could result in civil conflict, in breakdown of law and order, and in the further weakening of state power. Disruptive technologies are also being developed, which have a great potential of causing harm to mankind. But the road to control such technologies is still to be charted. Artificial intelligence can be a force for good or for evil for the international community, and we are still taking baby steps towards a code of conduct and a set of principles governing the future developments and direction of artificial intelligence. The world is, of course, also confronted by health emergencies, weather events, and the danger of a nuclear holocaust, either because of an accident, human error, or deliberate use. International law today, as you heard from the last forum, is honored more in its breach than its observance. The powerful countries impose their will on the weaker nations and peoples and deny them their fundamental rights. They are also the loudest in their accusations against the weaker nations of violations of human rights to serve the ends of the powerful states. In this international scenario, what measures can be pursued by Pakistan to safeguard its national interests? The first thing that we need to do is to set our own house in order. This is easier said than done because it needs drastic and multi-layered policy prescriptions in almost every field. Broadly, our leadership must learn to work together, first to eliminate political instability, adopt the necessary and harsh fiscal and monetary policies to overcome our major deficits, and the need to resort to ever-increasing borrowing. Real estate taxes on real estate, on agricultural sector, on retail sector, and on the corporate sectors are essential. Instead, we are subsidizing a number of sectors. About 6 or 7 years, the United Nations undertook a study of elite capture of Pakistan by different sectors of Pakistan's economy. They came to the conclusion at that time that the elite capture was complete and the elite were taking away in subsidies almost 3 trillion rupees. And at that time, the rate of the dollar was about 100 rupees to a dollar. So it would translate into almost 9 trillion rupees today. And what were these sectors? The corporate sector, the real estate sector, the agricultural sector, the armed forces, let me check. There was another sector of the subsidies were being paid to the corporate sector, the real estate sector, the retailers, the agriculture, and the military. 6 sectors were identified. There was a recent report that the tax loopholes being provided in 2024, where we want to collect 13 trillion rupees of taxes from the people, were 3.8 trillion rupees for the elite of this country. If we continue in this way, there is no way that we can emerge from the debt trap which is closing around us. There are certain basic things which we need to do. First thing is control the rise of our population. Pakistan cannot sustain the rate of growth of our population today. The second essential thing is improve our educational system and enroll the more than 25 million children that remain out of schools into schools, and impart vocational skills to enhance the productivity of labor. The third thing is base your decision-making in foreign affairs on cold logic and not on emotional reactions. We should know the limits of our power and act within its bounds. We know what needs to be done, but our leadership lacks the resolve to make the difficult decisions required to move towards a better future instead of sliding down into oblivion. Distinguished participants, I would now like to conclude this edition of Margalla Dialogue by thanking the distinguished moderators and eminent speakers from Pakistan and from abroad who spoke at the various forums and who have honored us with their presence and enriched our understanding of the issues that we discussed. We deeply appreciate and are grateful to them for their participation and their contribution to the success of this dialogue. I would also like to thank the President of IPRI, the directors, the fellows, senior and junior researchers, the administrative officers, and officials of the Islamabad Policy Research Institute who worked tirelessly to make this dialogue so successful. And I would request you for a warm round of applause for them. And finally, our deep thanks to the audience who stayed with us for long hours and participated in the dialogue by asking penetrating questions to which some of our distinguished and esteemed speakers perhaps either did not wish to reply or did not have perfect replies. I thank all of you, and we hope to see many of you throughout the year at the various events organized by the vibrant organization called IPRI and its dynamic leadership. To our foreign guests, we bid a safe journey back home and hope to see them at some future international event organized by IPRI. The Margalla Dialogue 2024 stands adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. The only thing left for me to say is that please join us for dinner arranged behind the stage, please. Thank you so much, all of you. Yes.